Here's a genuine question I have for Protestant Christians as a Catholic myself. So if scripture is so clear, why is there so much disagreement, and who's to say who's right and who's wrong?
Are the scriptures clear in matters of salvation? This is an excellent question by Iron Inquisitor, and I want to try and answer it. To start off, we all have to believe that something is perspicuous or clear enough to be understood by ordinary people. If that weren't true, how could anyone be saved? I think a Catholic is committed at least to the idea that the magisterium is perspicuous. So then, is the Catholic magisterium clear enough so that there are no disagreements? Obviously not. Many disagreements exist in the Catholic world. Are Protestants who knowingly reject Catholic dogmas heretics and therefore damned to hell? Catholics give different answers to this. What about Eastern Orthodox, who reject that the Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son? Are they damned to hell? Are practicing Jews and Muslims who reject Christianity damned to hell?
What's the Catholic view on who gets into heaven and who doesn't? What's the Catholic view of me? Am I basically screwed here?
No. Even Vatican II says that an atheist of goodwill can be saved.
Are divorced and remarried Catholics allowed to partake in the Eucharist? Is it morally wrong for governments to carry out the death penalty? Is hell empty? A Catholic might respond by saying that just because the magisterium is clear enough to be understood in matters of salvation doesn't mean that no one will disagree about it. After all, people disagree about all kinds of things, like whether the earth is round. Does that mean that the evidence is unclear? Someone might not read the magisterium properly, ignoring important historical contexts. Or someone might read the magisterium with an agenda, distorting its clear meaning to fit some kind of preconceived notion. Okay, fair enough. Just because the magisterium is clear enough that it can be understood, doesn't mean that it will be understood, or that there won't be disagreements. But Protestants can defend the clarity of scriptures regarding the doctrines of salvation in the exact same way. Sure, there are disagreements among Protestants about all sorts of things, but that doesn't mean that the scriptures are unclear in matters of salvation. The disagreements might come in areas other than topics related to salvation, or they might come about through carelessness and sin. That doesn't mean that we don't need interpretive authorities, by the way. Just like the rule book for a college basketball game might be clear, that doesn't mean that we don't need referees, or that the referees will never disagree. The original question by Iron Inquisitor also asks about how Protestants interpret John 6 in relation to the Eucharist. Now, this is a little bit awkward because I tend to agree with Catholics here. I think that John 6 is relatively straightforward and that the Catholic interpretation is more or less correct. And I think many Protestants like Lutherans, Anglicans, and some High Church Reformed would probably agree with me. Either way, when there are disagreements, the fault lies not with the scriptures, but with man. At the end of the day, I believe that God wrote scriptures because he intended for us to actually read them and be able to understand the basic message of salvation through them. There's an amazing quote by St. Augustine where he says exactly this, that while the scriptures contain an infinite depth of wisdom that a lifetime of study could not exhaust, the essential message of salvation is clear enough to be understood. Let me end by reading this passage from Deuteronomy 30. Now what I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you or beyond your reach. It is not up in heaven so that you have to ask, who will ascend into heaven to get it and proclaim it to us that we may obey it? Nor is it beyond the sea so that you have to ask, who will cross the sea and get it and proclaim it to us so that we may obey it? No, the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart so that you may obey it.